She's undoubtedly the most familiar face connected with Chilliwack business. An advocate, mother, entrepreneur, and director of the wildly popular Chilliwack Mural Festival. She sits on the board of Sepco, is involved with the Chilliwack Foundation, and has been connected with many other communities and boards. Amber Price joins me today, and this is Point of View. Amber, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good.
Good.
I'm trying to remember when you and I kind of first met. Like I remember your dad because at that time I owned Bravo Restaurant, and your dad used to come in at Christmas and buy like all of these gift certificates, and we thought, oh my God, who is this guy? Like like lots and lots.
Yeah, he's Santa Claus at Christmas.
Yeah, and so, so that was my first introduction to the book, man, and I didn't really go in for till about the first year, and then realized like a bit about that whole business and your relationship with him. So how has that been? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
About working with my dad?
Yeah.
It's been amazing. I mean, when you think back all the way, I started at the Bookman when I was 12 years old, and we used to have this really tall counter that I could barely even see over when I was back there with the adding machine. So you fast forward till now when I'm 44, I've devoted 24 years of my life full-time to the bookstore now. And it's been that balance of like father-daughter to now the reins have been passed over and now I am the bookman per se.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure, right? Like that family business thing and everything's, falling on you. Yeah. And you basically, you grew up, in Chilliwack's business, right? Yeah. And through many generations, you've probably seen a lot. You certainly have been a part of the downtown scene for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And you've seen a lot of changes down there. Are we good? Are we better? Or we stale? Where are we on that, where your business is situated?
Well, you heard the term revitalization tossed around a lot for many years. And over the past couple of years since the Alger brothers have come on the scene, thanks to the work of mayor and council previous, things have totally shifted. There was a pretty dark time downtown, and it was hard going for a while there. I think we're all very aware of those challenges. But the Algora redevelopment really sparked something in me, and I knew that we had to keep up with the Joneses. So we started tidying up our area more, introducing murals and all of those things. And the walkability of downtown is just phenomenal now.
Yeah.
We're seeing unprecedented growth for ourselves, and I've talked to other business owners in my general area, and they're saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, and it's, I think it's everybody doing their part, right? So you kind of were a leader in that. It was like, hey, let's all take responsibility for our front yards and our back areas, and let's start doing something. If we want change, then let's initialize change. Right. And I think that's where people started to really notice you. Because they're like, who is this person and who is this business owner? And then you even took it one step further, and it was like, well, why don't we decorate this wall? And where could we? And you started calling in these amazing artists and tell us a little bit about the birth of the whole Mural Festival.
Yeah, so I had put the one mural on the back of my bookstore, and I thought that was going to be it. But then Pencil Fingers had done that gorgeous mural at Five Corners, and it had come down, and I invited him to paint a pair of selfie wings for us. They look like an open book. Yeah. From there, Mavic put up his mural on Supreme Tattoo, and that was it. I wanted one of those. Yeah. So it kind of started snowballing, and as I began to run out of walls, I wanted a mentor because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I Googled mural festivals after Mavic told me all about them, and I found Sydney Black. She's the executive director of the Arts Council up in Nelson. And she is just so generous of spirit. She shared all of her documentation with me, spent 45 minutes on the phone with me. I went up and met her and volunteered with the Nelson Mural Festival with my family and brought that knowledge back to Chilliwack. And when I saw the energy that the Nelson Mural Festival had brought to their downtown, how many people were there enjoying the murals and going to restaurants and pubs and walking around with their families, I was determined to bring some of that energy back downtown. Yeah,
and that's it. I think it's you, really. It's your personality. And I was thinking you like the Wizard of Oz, and you're like Dorothy, and and people just follow you. when we were talking about the Rainbow Crosswalk, and you were, really involved in that and trying to get that to the forefront. Everybody, I couldn't believe the amount of people, and that I think everyone remembers probably one of the best pictures that was ever taken in downtown Chilliwack is that cross, right?
Yeah,
with John like right in the center, and
John
you had
Suffren.
so many great people that was like, hey, this is a good idea. And then of course you took it right to City Hall, and the mayor got involved and really made a statement. So how do you feel about how that whole process folded out?
Well, you see me as the front woman per se, but what you don't see are the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who were just waiting for the moment to speak their truth and to come forward, write a letter, sign a petition, and get involved. And that all came from two very dear friends who've had a business downtown for 15 years. They're veterans in the downtown core, and they really wanted to see themselves reflected on the street that they do business. So it was a way of me honoring them to take that work on and do it. And I really look at things like, say, murals or rainbow crosswalks as both a way of celebrating people and a way of showing that we want to promote economy with everyone. And I know during like Pride, we had people coming back from Vancouver that moved away because they didn't feel welcome here, and they were weeping. Because for the first time they felt like, oh, I could actually belong here.
Sure.
So I think that while maybe it didn't unfold how I thought it would, that's kind of the thing with success. It doesn't look like you think it might right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, like, if your goal was that, to achieve a crosswalk in downtown Chilliwack, but look at what you did in the bigger picture. Like, even though it wasn't that goal, you achieved another goal. And as a gay man with a business, years ago when we first opened up in 2004, and then when we moved here in 1999, I mean, I actually had a bat under my bed. And it's just, we didn't know where we were going to, and we had actually faced a few, negative comments and negative, sort of people coming and saying things about our business, and it's hurtful, and that. Making sure you're leading inclusivity is not an easy task. So, hands up. You've done very well, but you've also, other people are following you, and this is going to be a very inclusive city. We're going to get there.
So.
I can see that happening now. I want to talk a bit about other things that you do. Sepco is important to me, being a businessman, and you yourself as a businesswoman as well. You are now one of 3. And we never had any women on that. And I think we talked about it on this show when Sam Waddington was here, and I pointed that out. And now we have 3 women on Sepco. What is that like, and what is that atmosphere like?
So Sepco is a really interesting organization because they look at economic development for Chilliwack and making the best possible use of available land, especially light industrial land in particular. And when I joined, there were 3 women on the board. And then, Deborah Arts had been there for a long time, and she decided to move on to other things. I think she'd been there for a decade. Incredible woman, great role model. And a young woman named Ellen had been there for a while, but she changed careers. So it kind of shrank, and then it grew again. But I think, at tables of leadership, that diversity is imperative. If you're going to make decisions that are well-rounded and come at the same issue from lots of perspectives, you need to seek those perspectives out and place them in positions of power at tables of leadership. And I think it's tricky because a lot of industries are dominated still by men. And so perhaps the pool is smaller. But I teased them on International Women's Day, and I said, all I want for International Women's Day is a couple of sisters at the table. And they were already working on it. So they are trying to be proactive. Yeah.
And I think it's important for us, too, as men to be allies. Like, if we look around and we go, hey, there isn't quite representation here, I think we need to speak up.
Yes, and there were members of the board that had mentioned it as well. Brian Minter is one of those people who always says, let's look at who's not at the table and let's address those things. And he's such an incredible leader in that sense.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I'll tell you one other person, Clint Hames actually said to me, and I think it was the Liberal Party, because I had ran federally in 2015, and we had a conversation. I said, why don't you run? Like, people trust you and they know you. And he said to me, Louis, he said, there's a million guys that look like me. Like, if I don't take that spot at the table, then I'm leaving it. for somebody else to
Yeah.
take that spot.
Yeah.
And so going into this election, you know, we have just one position that's open and the rest are incumbents. So, you know, it gets to, okay, is our council actually big enough? Should we be adding seats? Should we be looking at, you know, Indigenous seats? I know people are talking about allocation. I mean, how do you sit on you know, maybe moving to the next phase of what our municipal government may look like?
Well, there was a great letter to the editor just a couple of days ago from a citizen named Lisa Morey, who actually ran for council last time, and she was asking these exact questions. And I think as Chilliwack continues to grow, that old bylaw from 1983 that limited us to 6 council people no longer makes sense. Chilliwack, which was much smaller then. And once you cross 53,000 people by the BC Municipalities Act, you are meant to have 8 councillors. So I think it's a natural evolution to bring that number up and hopefully allow for more representation too, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, is that something that you might, you know, bring to the table, you know, if you're elected?
Well, it's something that I've already talked about with some of the existing council people, and I think that there is some interest there, so I would definitely support raising that council member number. And I think, you know, a lot of people think about that and they think about, well, there's more taxes and more positions. But I like to think about it as, what are your councillors able to do for your city if there's more of them that they wouldn't be able to do if there was less of them? That includes more committees, like perhaps we have an inclusion, diversity, and accessibility committee instead of just a task group that's permanent at City Hall, or looking at a decolonization or indigenization committee. Like, it gives more room for committees, for work to be done.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great thing to spread that out so that our councillors aren't overburdened and not serving our city as well as
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think what it actually is doing is bringing democracy like right to the communities and giving them an opportunity to participate.
Yes.
Like on those committees, those are where the recommendations should be coming from.
That's right.
The people who actually know more about that topic, and they make the recommendations, not always just from staff, but from the people and what they want to see in their city and what, you know, you should be championing. So tell me a bit about, you know, some of your other things, other ideas that you might like to bring to City Hall.
Well, I'm somebody who really believes in celebrating our creative class, and we've seen a lot of that through the Chilliwack Public Arts Advisory Committee. But I've had people reaching out to me asking for different kinds of support for music or grant programs or things like that. So I would love to see that cultural celebration piece fleshed out a little bit more. Maybe look at our RFP process and how it's leaving some of our artists out that don't have the necessary requirements. And just kind of looking at the structure of some of the committees, like the Affordable Housing Committee, for example, doesn't have a lot of citizens, if any, on it, and I would really like to take a look at that and ensure that we have the right voices at the table. Of course, it's not all up to me, and we all go in with our ideas of what we think we want to get done. But I think my first year is mostly going to be spent, if I am elected, figuring out how everything works, making sure that I'm connected to staff and that I'm part of a strong team.
Yeah, there was, it reminds me of Bernie Cross. I don't know, I always think of Bernie Cross, and I've mentioned him before, but like getting involved with the community and going out there and meeting the seniors, you know, meeting people with disabilities, finding out, you know, where they fit into, you know, building a great community and how accessibility, you know, and so I think we're missing sort of that connection. You know, I really feel that, you know, with a candidate like you, and you've been kind of preparing a few years for this, and you've always said, you know, if I had that chance, and I said that too when I was moving into politics, I said, if only I get elected, I would have an opportunity, you know, to champion this and take people's voice right to the table and be able to do something about it. But I just want to talk a bit about putting in your papers and the day that, because that was kind of fun, and it's a good story. So we're just going to take a quick little break, and we'll be right back with Amber Price. Welcome back. I'm with Amber Price today, and we're going to talk about the day of. So everything builds up over the years, and and I know this, and it's a week to go, and then you count down, and it's about it's 2 days, and then it's hours before your paper have to be submitted. So I get this text on my phone because you and I are friends,
Yes.
right? And we've talked about this for I don't know how long about you running.
Yeah.
And so I get this text. It's like, Louis, and I'm like, oh my God. So, and I rush down to your store and I knock on your office and I go in, and you're almost white.
Yeah.
And I see the papers and a couple of staff behind you almost like going like this. And so tell me a bit about those last couple of moments.
Well, I have to say, I'm somebody who really moves in the direction of my heart. Like, if I want something, I really do apply myself, and I'm focused, and I go for it. And I had done so much thinking about it, so much preparation, put so much thought into it, that day of, I was just frozen. It just seemed like such a monolithic decision, and all of the doubts and all of the fears just come right up. And there was a Women in Politics event just a couple of nights ago, and they were all very candid about their own processes. And what nobody had really told me is that this is perfectly normal. Yeah. I assumed that it would be like everything else in my life with that clear, delineated line that I followed, but this was very different. This was a huge step forward. I can only equate it to, when you jump off into the water. It felt like that.
Like you're going to be a servant leader. Like you put everything out there. And you're like, okay, I want to be a leader in my community, and this is actually happening. Yeah. But not only that, but like, what is that culture like at City Hall? Like, I don't know, like the stats of, being a woman in politics in Chilliwack City Hall. Yeah. Are some of those things maybe fears that you might have, or, like it's always apprehension, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to take that leap.
Well, I have so much respect for our incumbent councillors and have met the other candidates that are running. And they're great people, so it's not a fear of them as people, and I think that they've done their best with leadership as well. Lots of great decisions that I've watched over the last few years. Yeah. But I think for me, it was more of, am I going to be able to make as much of a difference inside as my heart feels that I do on the outside? The gains that I have made in community with the support and teamwork of so many people have been so joyful and satisfying. The idea of being in a place where I maybe couldn't enact that much change is very intimidating and puts you in a place where you don't know if it's right for you. So it was a lot of consideration. And our family is going through some big transitions right now as well. So I was really weighing those responsibilities as well. Oh,
for sure. I mean, having a business and, and putting yourself on, it's like, how much is that going to take away? And your mom, right? So, how much of that, real important family time am I willing to sacrifice? Because I know you're like, you're 100%, you're going to give it all. You're going to work like, 100 hours a week and, and you're going to be able to do everything because you're like, if there was a Chilliwack Cirque du Soleil, you would be like the star person.
Oh,
so,
coming from you.
And even running to what I didn't know when I ran in the city was that you don't get access to the voters list. So you're kind of running blind. Yeah. You don't know, okay, well, who voted, can I knock on doors? Because federally, we got the lists.
That's right. And
so we kind of targeted, we knew the areas and we could really concentrate on them to get your votes up. So what are you doing to ensure that, you're going to have that voter support besides social media to drag them out there and get them to vote for Amber Price?
Well, I thankfully I've had lots of amazing people in my life whose campaigns I've worked on. So I'm getting a lot of very solicited advice. I want to hear from people who have experience to give me. It's no different than any other area of my life. So reaching out to those experts and asking them for, what resources should I be using, what avenues should I be using, and getting all of that good advice. So making sure that I'm making my advertising accessible to seniors by having ads in the paper, which of course also supports our local journalists who do a great job for our city. Making sure that I'm doing radio advertisements for people who might not be able to read a newspaper anymore or who don't have time to sit down and read, so they're traveling feeling. Just making sure that I make my advertising as accessible and plentiful as the budget allows. So.
Nice, good. Yeah, it's all about like selling yourself, right?
That's right.
And because most people I would think would know you because you've been so active for the last few years, but there's still people, like seniors that they have their own lives. So how do you go about reaching them? What about that whole voting process as well? I know we've got mail-in ballots, but how come we haven't moved to like digital voting? Like we do digital banking, things are secure. Like if we don't really know who's going out, we're not getting that data to figure out where we need to concentrate on what sector isn't voting or where we need to maybe spend more resources
do some
to
more
get
TikTok videos.
get those people out. Do you think more youth would vote if we actually went to like your ballot you could just do on your phone?
Well, these are all accessibility questions. And I think that when we really start thinking of who's not at the table and why, we can start answering some of those questions. But like you said, we don't necessarily have that data. But, for myself, just kind of reaching out to different communities saying, are you voting this year? Are you voting this year? Have you thought about having a vote party with your friends so that you all get together and go out for dinner after you vote in a group? Like trying to make it a more fun and engaging and accessible process. I would love to see digital voting. I would love to see those voter registration lists capped so that we can use that data and ensure that we're getting more and more of our population out. It's not very encouraging when you see such low voter turnout. And I think I hate cynicism and apathy. They are like my nemesis in life. So anything that I can do to combat that and get people involved and caring and knowing what a difference voting in your municipal election makes, I will do.
Yeah, that's about it. Is championing, the things, what we could do.
That's right.
Right? Because we want, like I say, that democracy, this affects all of our lives.
That's
The
right.
municipal election is probably the most.
I would agree.
We might think, it's the federal, but you know what? This is it. It all happens here. Your tax rates,
That's right.
your schools, all of that is going to happen now. How about capturing more information? Like, I know in the United States, they might have, they ask people certain questions. Couldn't we use that as well, to sort of get some of that information back to City Hall? We spend a lot of money on surveys and everything else, but when we have somebody at the ballot box, why don't we take that opportunity to use that to collect that information from our voters?
It's a great question, and I think that all of that depends on the will of council, right? Yeah.
And going forward, like this whole decision, now that you're in the race, it's all happening. Who might be, like, say, some of your mentors that, who got you to where you are right now, running?
It's not kissing up to say you, is it?
No, well, you can, but I don't know.
But no, seriously, so many times in my life when I've felt very lost, I have called you, and you always set me right. Shayla Hall is another person that I turn to for that wisdom and that strength that sometimes eludes me during times of stress. And I just think of very good friends that I've made, both established and new, that are just such good people with such good integrity, huge hearts, great sense of community and commitment to that community. And they see me in a way that I can't see myself. So when there's times of doubt or fear or stress, turning to those people to be reminded of who you are, where you're headed, and what's important, that's what you need. You need those people in your life.
Yeah, and nobody's perfect, right? We're all going to make mistakes.
Let that not be the goal.
Yeah. But I think, you do something, for the right reasons. Yeah. I think that's important too. Yeah. And, your colleagues and working within the council as well, I think is very important. Yeah. But also to make sure that, you're not afraid to stand up when you really do feel it's right. And sometimes I feel that, a lot of those conversations sort of are done on a Tuesday, and then on Thursday, everyone comes out and we already know where we're going to go. And, I like to see that debate or town halls. Yeah. Like, why can't we have a town hall?
I'm excited for the Yarrow Town Hall.
Yeah, why does it always have to be like usually a controversial topic before we all get out in Evergreen and start saying, hey, I want to just ask you a few, basic questions and listen to me, right? So...
Well, and that's something that I've noticed during this kind of campaigning season is that people are reaching out to me and telling me their concerns and what they want to see. They want to go for walks and coffee and have those conversations. And I really hope that that doesn't change. Like, I feel very, very lucky to have the trust of people when they come to me and confide their challenges in our community. And that at a larger scale, like those open discussions without defensiveness or a need to explain things, but really just to listen and have those community conversations. Because the rumbles and the whispers are always there. And by the time they become a roar, there were lots of opportunities to listen to that first. So I hope that I can continue to kind of keep my fingers on that pulse and keep connected and have people do me the credit of being honest and telling me when something needs work.
Yeah, that's great. You've always been approachable, right?
Yeah, thank you.
know? Yeah, that's good. You're involved in a couple of charities as well. So Chilliwack Foundation is one of them. It's a charity that very few people really know a lot about. Can you explain a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the Chilliwack Foundation is an incredible organization where philanthropists have willed funds to a giant fund. And those funds are very, very carefully managed by a committee that oversees the investment. And the profits from that come out and then are utilized to buy capital assets for not-for-profits in Chilliwack. So if you have a not-for-profit and say you need a whole bunch of chairs or some choral risers or some new sound equipment or video equipment, those costs are big and there's not a lot of grants for them, but there's a grant right here in your own community that happens twice a year. And I get the honor of being on the Santa Claus committee called the Distribution Committee, and all of the applications come to us and we go through our mandates and make sure that the applications match all of the requirements, and then as a committee we make decisions on how to allocate those funds. And it's a significant amount of money that's given away every year, but it never dips into that capital. It just always there, that nest egg that grows. And they do scholarships and bursaries as well. They're just an incredible organization. So when they asked me, I jumped at the opportunity. Yeah,
totally. Makes sense. Bob Besner, Alex Marks, those are two people that I know that are involved in that as well. So kudos. That's a great organization. Really. How about the Arts Council? You're involved in that as well.
So I'm a newer member of the Arts Council. The Arts Council has been around for over 50 years now in Chilliwack, so a very rich history. And we're kind of in the process of recreating the Arts Council. We've recently folded Mural Festival into the Arts Council. Nice. So it's one and the same. And Lise Oakley is the executive director of the Mural Festival, who is a contracted staff member with the Arts Council. So it's a really great, harmonious relationship. We've got the Dragonfly Arts and Crafts store in the mall, which our executive director, Siobhan D'Souza, oversees. And we have over 100 local artists and artisans that have their work there. So people can go and pick up something that was made right here in Chilliwack by a creative person, which is fantastic for everybody. So those things, we had the art walk at the Vedder River recently, which was a lot of fun to volunteer at. And we're looking at doing maybe a cider festival or a wine and art walk sometime in the summer as well for next year.
Nice. And anything else I missed?
Oh, I've got Ina's Community Cats tucked in there too.
Okay.
I'm cat crazy. Anybody who comes to the bookstore has probably figured out that I have a thing for cats. So Ina Ramirez and I have worked together for a long time, all the way back to when Safe Haven was around. And she has personally driven over 8,500 cats to be spayed or neutered over her career as an animal rescue and welfare person. So hats off to Ina. I love working with her.
We love our animals, right?
Yeah.
That's our, like, those are our kids.
Yeah,
that's good. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
And I hope we
Louis.
gave the viewers, a little bit insight of who you are, and they can always reach you how?
Well, I'm available through my website at amberprice.ca. You can also email me there. I'm also very predictable and easy to find. I'm at the bookstore downtown, so I'm always game for a trash talk. We can go for a walk around the block, pick up some trash. You can pick my brain and I can pick yours. And I just, I think that Chilliwack is such a generous and incredible community. I have loved getting to know new people better during this process. I look forward to hearing people's concerns. I look forward to connecting with people. And more than anything, make sure you get out and vote.
Wow, that's great. You got my vote, that's for sure.
Thank you.
I did have a woman warrior little sash for you to wear, and I forgot it. And I feel so awful because, you're in a rush and that's it. So I do owe you that. And because I know you're a warrior anyway. So Doesn't matter what you wear. But thanks, everyone. Get out and vote. Make sure you've got you bring a friend, right? We've got to get those numbers up.
That's right.
That's really important.
Go for dinner
And,
afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. Chill TV's got their town hall. There's tons of things coming up. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and Amber Price as well. And good luck.
Thank you very much, Louis.
Awesome.